Greetings, loyal subscribers and honoured guests. Welcome back to another episode of the Xbox Zone. This week I'm going to be taking a look at Alan Wake, as well as the 2 pieces of DLC that were released, and the downloadable spin-off, Alan Wake's American Nightmare. Leading up to its release, Alan Wake was eagerly anticipated by many because of the success of Remedy Entertainment's previous franchise, Max Payne. I have never played the Max Payne games myself, but I do remember seeing the trailers of Wake and being intrigued. It wasn't until I watched the game being played in a Giant Bomb Quick Look that I decided to get a copy for myself, however.
Stephen King once wrote that nightmares exist outside of logic, and there's little fun to be had in explanations. They're antithetical to the poetry of fear. In a horror story, the victim keeps asking why, but there can be no explanation, and there shouldn't be one. The unanswered mystery is what stays with us the longest, and it's what we'll remember in the end. My name is Alan Wake. I'm a writer.
Alan Wake is a successful crime writer who is now suffering from a bad case of writer's block, having just killed off the main character of his book series in the last volume. His wife, Alice, has persuaded him to travel to the small country town of Bright Falls to try and relax. Unbeknownst to him, she has also arranged an appointment with the town psychiatrist, Dr. Hartman, who owns a clinic nearby. Not long after arriving at Bright Falls, Alice goes missing. It first looks like she has drowned in Cauldron Lake, but soon Wake receives a phone call from someone claiming that they have her. He sets out into the dark woods around Bright Falls to meet the kidnapper and get his wife back. Suffice to say, there's a lot more going on than that. Alan Wake is heavily inspired by the horror writings of Stephen King, especially his Castle Rock stories that are set in and around Maine. An evil dark presence is causing his fiction to become real, and it is also taking over townspeople and turning them into the Taken, shadowy figures with murderous intent. After Wake gets his hands up on a flashlight and a pistol, he can fight back against these enemies by first burning away the dark energy that protects them with his light, and then shooting them with his gun. The pistol and the flashlight will be your main weapons throughout the entire game, although you will get a shotgun or hunting rifle from time to time, as well as a flare gun, flares and flashbang grenades. In one of the 6 chapters of the main game, you are without your gun and your light for much of it, which was the most annoying part of the entire game for me. All you can do is try and evade the enemies and hope you can get to the next lamppost without being killed. These act as safe havens, refilling your health and activating a checkpoint. You do have a dodge move mapped to LB, which takes good timing to pull off successfully and doesn't always work reliably in my experience. Other than this one weak chapter though, the rest of the game is fantastic. The narrative is compelling and well written by one of the founders of Remedy, Sam Lake. He is also the face of Max Payne, so you may know what he looks like already. The lighting and the spooky atmosphere of the game is fantastic, with the clouds roiling overhead whenever the Taken are about to assault you. The standout set piece of the game takes place at an old farm where there is a music stage. You have to use the lighting rigs and pyrotechnics to fend off wave upon wave of Taken, while heavy metal wails in the background. Great stuff. The game would get pretty dull if the entire thing was set at night though. Luckily there are decent sized stretches in each chapter that are set during the day. These sections further the story and give you some much needed downtime in between the stressful night sections. To add a bit of exploration and challenge, there are a fair few collectibles scattered throughout the levels of Alan Wake. Firstly, there are manuscript pages which make up parts of a story that are apparently written by Wake himself, and that always foreshadow what's about to happen in the game itself. Some of these are only discoverable in hard mode, so I'm unlikely to get all of them myself. There are also lots of coffee thermoses hidden throughout the game. Most of these are actually where you might expect to find them, such as at a campsite in the woods. A few are a bit more hidden though. Every chapter also has a TV set in it somewhere that will play a brief episode of a fictional TV show called Night Springs. These are quite obviously inspired by shows like The Twilight Zone and The Outer Limits, and are an absolute delight. The TV sets aren't that hard to find, really.
Crime and punishment. The cancer and cure of civilization. But some crimes are impossible to punish. especially in Night Springs. Tonight's episode, The Man in the Mirror.
The 6 main chapters of the game each take roughly 2 hours to complete, so you're looking at a 12-hour game, probably longer on your first playthrough. I would say that's a pretty decent length. Again, Microsoft are asking for £15 for the digital version, which seems to be their standard rate for the backwards compatible Xbox 360 titles. They did give it away as part of Games with Gold a while ago, so some of you might already have it in your library. The game actually did disappear from online stores for a while because the music license ran out, but that's since been sorted and you can purchase it again. Taking a quick look online, Music Magpie are selling it for less than £5, including postage, so that's your best bet for picking it up, I would say. Upon going through the game again, I didn't quite enjoy it as much the second time through as I did the first time all those years ago when it was released, especially the 3rd chapter where the gameplay was really quite annoying. I did still have quite a lot of fun though, and technically the game holds up remarkably well. The compelling story and the mystery within it will probably draw you through to the end. All in all, I would say the game still deserves a solid rating of 8 out of 10. So that brings us to the end of the main review. I'm going to go over what I thought about the DLC and Alan Wake's American Nightmare now, which may contain some spoilers, so if you haven't played the game yet and are still planning to, you'll probably want to stop the video here. Okay, so at the end of the base game you do manage to save Alice, but as a result Alan is trapped within the dark place under Cauldron Lake himself. The DLC consists of 2 extra episodes, The Writer and The Signal, in which you try and find your way out. The Dark Forces also create an evil dark doppelganger of Wake who goes by the name of Mr. Scratch. Each piece of DLC is slightly shorter than one of the normal episodes at about an hour and a half. It is a bit annoying that the end of the game isn't actually the end and the story continues into the DLC, but hey, get used to it, as the story of Alan Wake still hasn't reached its conclusion to this very day. I didn't enjoy the DLC episodes nearly as much as the main story. They didn't really add anything new to the mix, unfortunately. Alan Wake's American Nightmare is different though. There's much more emphasis on combat and action, with an expanded range of weapons for you to pick up. Quite a few of these weapons are locked away until you've collected a certain number of manuscript pages, of which there are around 55. A lot of these are close to the main path, and they always appear on your radar as a question mark with a circle around it, so they're quite hard to miss. From a story point of view, the dark place has bled through into the real world once again, this time in Texas. The fictional town of Night Springs from the TV show has been physically created in the desert, complete with a roadside motel, an observatory and a drive-in cinema. It's time to do battle against Mr. Scratch and put an end to him once and for all. This downloadable side game doesn't take very long to complete, but I do feel that you get your money's worth, and the story mode is bolstered by the addition of an arcade mode, which is a horde-style challenge pitting you against waves of Taken. There is a time loop going on, which means that you will go through the same 3 areas 3 times. This will probably annoy some, but I do understand why they did this. They would have been on a much smaller budget for this game compared to the first one with its full retail release. They had to be economical with the content somehow, or the game would have been tiny. The loop does work within the context of the dark place though. Ultimately, if you are a fan of the first game, I do think you would enjoy this one too. While Alan does manage to defeat Mr. Scratch, and there is hope that he will one day be reunited with Alice, at the conclusion of American Nightmare he is still trapped within the dark place. Since then, Remedy Entertainment have released Quantum Break and Control, both of which contain direct references to Alan Wake. Quantum Break reveals that Wake has been in the dark place for 5 years as of the events of that game, and in Control he's been there for 10 years. There is hope though. It looks as if one of the DLCs being released for Control is going to be a full-on crossover with Alan Wake, so he may finally get to come home. It's an exciting time for fans of this franchise and Remedy Entertainment as a whole. Nobody does stories quite like them, and I will continue to lap up anything that they release. That brings us to the end of another episode of the Xbox Zone. Please let me know about your own experience with the Alan Wake series in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, please consider leaving a like and sharing on social media. If you would like to see more like this, then please subscribe to RMGB TV. I'll be back very soon with the next one. In the meantime, take care.